As someone who grew up playing video games at the age of 3, I played dozens of different games. Legendary racing games like Need for Speed Underground 1 and 2, Lego games like Star Wars The Complete Saga and Indiana Jones, and of course, shooters like Call of Duty Finest Hour, the OG Rainbow Six Lockdown, and even Medal of Honor. I started to play all kinda games, but in the end, I was more into shooter games, so I don't care that much about fantasy and racing games anymore. After 16 years of experience, I saw the best and worst highlights in gaming history, the ups and downs, and in terms of good highlights, we know what time we like most, the golden age of gaming. Many of you will agree that the older games that have been released in the 2000s were much better than the stuff we have now. Not in terms of graphics and performance, but in terms of storytelling and dedication of the developers and publishers. We had a low phase at the beginning of the 2010s with games that slightly became boring and repetitive, but that actually turned out to be not bad at all. Publishers back in the day just risked more, learned after their mistakes, and tried new concepts and let their developers use their creativity. That's how legends like Far Cry 3 and The Last of Us were born. A time when publishers cared about giving their customers a pleasing product. And then we had, in my opinion, the peak of gaming. Late 2016 until mid-2019. I only need to mention their names and you probably instantly know why. Gears of War Remastered, Titanfall 2, Battlefield 1, Uncharted 4, Dark Souls 3, Far Cry 5, Spider-Man, and what else there was. For me personally, I even enjoyed, for the majority of players at least, the so-called mid games like Call of Duty World War II. I loved it. Criminally underrated. Mafia 3, Far Cry New Dawn, Gears 5, and even Battlefield 5. After the Pacific DLC though. But there is one game I probably enjoyed the most. It caught my attention so good I even cried a little at the end, which never happened before. The game that was released today, exactly 6 years ago. What else could it be rather than Red Dead Redemption 2? In my opinion, this game is the definition of a masterpiece.
Red Dead Redemption 2!
Roger Clark as Arthur Morgan, Red Dead Redemption 2.
It has an intense story. Good thing was, I haven't played Red Dead Redemption 1 at that time. Yeah, I know, how could I? But therefore, I had no spoiler issues at all. It has the most detailed environment and the best gameplay mechanics I've ever seen. Mind-blowing graphics, intelligent AI, and overall thrilling and entertaining as f***. It was so good, I replayed the game for 5 times since release, and I actually took the time to get 100% for 4 times. Do I regret anything? Yes, I regret that I only paid $90 for it. It deserved at least 150. It's actually a crime that this piece of shit still costs $80, while our bad boy is now only worth how much? How much is it worth? $30. $30. So either Red Dead Redemption 2, a full game that has a gorgeous story where you can at least play for 100 hours without getting bored, or Black Cell. You see, this is the perfect example to compare the companies, what they've been doing in the past and how they change now. 6 years ago, the publishers cared about releasing a game that's solid, finished and entertaining. They actually listened and cared about their communities. And what do we have now after 6 years? Unfinished games, not optimized for the fan base at all, straight up lies to their communities, microtransactions that were better programmed than the game itself, no creativity, verbal assaults to critics, threats on their customers. I swear it sounds so ridiculous I ain't even laughing anymore. How could a whole industry do the shepherd move so quickly at the same time? I'll tell you why. The answer is so simple and common. It's the best tool in our brain, but at the same time, the greatest curse. It's greed. Greed for money and profit. In the industry, when you want to sell a product, You want to decrease the production cost and increase the price. That's a big part of handling the own resources. Now there's always a time when this way of thinking takes completely over and overshadows every other goal and morale. Problem is that almost an entire industry followed this path within 6 years. But why? What was actually the reason that triggered greed? Before I answer this question, I recommend you to like and subscribe if you like to watch more topics about gaming and shooters. I'll have more stuff coming up, and yeah, don't worry, part 2 of my last video is cooking. Now, back to the main video. The whole story about this problem in the gaming industry started at the beginning of 2020. And what was at the beginning of 2020? You probably figured it out. The COVID lockdown. Remember? When all your friends in the friend group went online, when you spent lots of hours playing OG Warzone on Verdansk? Those were the days. Everyone took profit from it. We gamers had a great time playing our games with our friends. And gaming and console companies suddenly sold thousands of their products and earned lots of money. It was probably the highest financial peak for the companies. And I think that's exactly where the problem started. The lockdown and those millions of people being at home, looking for distraction, was the trigger. Because suddenly, the gaming industry, next to the movie industry, completely took over the lives of our society. Gaming turned officially mainstream. And that's when everything went down the hill. The gaming companies, with an increased player base now, sold more of their games. So they made more profit and pleased their investors. Thinking they could keep up their sales, they got more support from the investors and were told to gain the same amount or even more money. The problem here was that the stakes were put too high. The lockdown wouldn't take forever, meaning they couldn't keep up their sales on the same level when it was over. And instead of giving resistance, the companies just followed. And now the investors became their primary target. And the players themselves? Well, they were just assets in order to achieve the goals of the investors, focusing on maximum profit instead of a proper game. And it wouldn't matter if they fooled their own community. And when they got to work, creating their games in order to please the players, they completely neglected their communities and focused on new trends and tried to optimize their games for everyone to gain even more money. And why did they do this? Because as soon as something becomes mainstream, it has to fit the current mindset and imagination of our society, regardless what their own community, the players that bought their products year after year after year, actually want. I'm sorry, but if you want to be loved by everyone, you're gonna be hated by everyone. Hypocrisy and betrayal are the most disgusting in this world. And many companies did it at the same time. I could go deeper and tell you about the specific situation of different companies. But overall, this pretty much explains why games became such a mess these days. But is there light at the end of the tunnel? Is the gaming industry going to improve and rethink their situation? Like I said before, greed always takes over sooner or later. So the situation where we are now was inevitable. Thing is, everything has its ups and downs, especially if you have a big up, you're gonna have a very big down. Just like now. Like how did Count Dooku say, twice the pride, double the fall.
Twice the pride, double the fall.
It's pretty much the same. But the big and last question remains though, are we gonna get real masterpieces again? Or will the companies be unable to do that anymore? Thing is, no matter what trend or direction, there's always fish swimming against the stream. Despite these terrible releases, we had some really good games in the last couple of years. And it seems that some companies are slowly starting to learn what they need to focus on. So, yes, I do think that we are gonna get some banger games in the future. Games that will make us talk positively about it. Games that will please the fans and especially the core community. Because in the end, we are king. This is our place and we have the upper hand. So you either do as we say or drown in your own ignorance. I have spoken. Now thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next video.